Hey there. I want to take a few minutes to tell you guys 4 reasons that I think public speaking is one of the number one most important things you can do to advance your career. Now, one of the reasons this has been on my mind and the focus of some recent blog posts and Facebook Live videos is because I'm going to be the coach for the Association of Women Surgeons Signature Speakers Series, which is an awesome initiative kicking off this year in October at their annual meeting. It is funded by educational grant, and it is intended to advance the careers of 10 mid-career surgeons, so surgeons who are well published, but somehow just not quite having the professional visibility, reputation, and speaking invitations that are needed to advance to that next level of academic promotion. So that's the purpose of the Signature Speaker Series that we're going to be doing at the Association of Women Surgeons annual meeting in San Francisco. And as I'm gearing up to that and kind of putting some materials together, I obviously want to share it with everybody else. So I'm thinking about, the 4 reasons, 4 top reasons, there are more, why speaking really sets you apart and helps you to progress your career, and it really regardless of your career goals. So I tried to set a few aside, and I've got some notes. I'm going to share them with you guys now. So the first is speaking is much more memorable than writing. It just is. You may have a few favorite books or a really impressive article, but generally speaking, if you go to an annual meeting of some kind and you look at a bunch of posters and you sit in on some sessions, or when you think about the regular CME that you do over the course of the year, you can remember somebody who's a really impactful, speaker who connected in a deep way and gave you something really great to think about or taught you something really, really good. That is just much more memorable. So when we think about the importance of developing that professional reputation for academic advancement, speaking is definitely the way to go. Now, if you're in private practice, it's still important if that's part of your marketing strategy and you build your customer base by getting the word out there that you are an expert. Now, you may be doing this in a different on a different stage, right? Perhaps not at an academic conference, possibly even primarily on social media or your own website, but still connecting with your potential patients or your potential clients through speaking is so much more memorable than anything you can put out there in writing. So that's one way in which if you get comfortable and you get good, you get effective at public speaking, that can really catalyze your career success, again, in academics or private practice. And as we're going to get into here in a little bit, also in pivots and transfers and taking on sort of non-traditional or non-clinical roles in healthcare. Okay, the second one is that unlike pretty much everything else, right, definitely unlike papers, speaking is somewhat self-sustaining. So if you're giving a talk at a major venue, it's highly likely that in the audience are a handful of people who are also going to be planning a meeting in the coming, say, year or 18 months. And so when they hear you on stage, they are going to be likely to reach out. I can't think of a single time that I've given a presentation, possibly with the exception of within my own academic institution in its own department, where at the end, somebody didn't reach out, at least through email or potentially live in person, and ask if I'd be interested in going to the next thing. Sometimes multiple people do that. The bigger the stage, the more likely you get more of those kinds of events. Sometimes it's immediate, and sometimes it's several months, maybe even years after the fact. But am I right? I mean, it's self-sustaining. You get up there, you do a great job, you deliver, and you get additional invitations. Now, when you write an article, it just doesn't always happen quite that way. The third is there is no more desirable transferable skill than public speaking. Why? So if you were thinking about doing something in leadership or something in industry or something maybe in a totally different type of role, or you're just thinking about moving on up in your hospital or in your group, you absolutely have to be able to speak. Now, your role in speaking might evolve from speaking on a stage or CME type of thing to speaking in a boardroom. But when people talk about wanting good leadership skills and good communication skills, they don't really mean, can you write a decent email? They mean, can you get up in a crowd, get up in a boardroom, get up on a stage and speak and connect with people? So the ability to do public speaking, to facilitate a workshop, to give a webinar, to give a video like this is a kind of skill that is really applicable to everybody's business, and it will go a long way towards sort of boosting your success no matter what your path. And then the fourth thing I want to say is speaking is multifaceted. So a lot of people have kind of a narrow view of what it means to be a speaker. And in medicine, we often think very much for academics. So we think about grand rounds, we think about giving a workshop or conference. But the reality is, there are a lot of things. I mean, there's definitely all of that. And then there are keynote presentations within those. And then, of course, there are other CME opportunities. There are other meetings, CME opportunities that are totally academic, not industry related. And very often there's a little bit of an inverse relationship between the prestige of the event and the location and the potential speaker fee. So it can be really great because you can give good CME content that's entirely your own. You've created it just like a Grand Rounds, but you're giving it in a place that you really would like to travel, or you're getting paid nicely to do it. So these things really have great benefits. But even if you're not doing academics and you're not looking at CME, there's a lot of business utility. So depending upon your topic, it might be something that business professionals would want to hear about. If it's about resilience, if it's about productivity, if it's about making your brain better. I mean, there's all kinds of things that are both medical and also applicable to other types of business and to just human beings in general. And you would be potentially quite surprised at how groups and organizations come up with their speakers or their presenters for workshops, for faculty development, and for other types of business development needs. So that's something people often aren't thinking about as a possibility for them, but that is an extraordinarily great way to connect with people who can really benefit from your expertise. And also, it's pretty entrepreneurial. It's usually distinct from your CME type of work, and it usually pays pretty well. So that's good news. As we talk about in the speaking prescription, not all of the opportunities that you get will pay, of course, and the ones that will pay the most, it's very, very important that you have a really good handle on whether or not through your current employer or partner obligations, your institutional contracts, whether you're even in a position to accept that money. So I'm going to put a little asterisk on that. But even so, it is certainly a way to be able to travel. It is potentially a very lucrative opportunity for you. And even if you cannot pocket that money, you may be able to use that money to offset your clinical duty, right? So that it's not on top of everything else, but that it is just part of your job. Then the fourth that we'll talk about is, if you haven't thought about this, being a spokesperson or being in media, particularly for a nonprofit or some kind of advocacy group that you care about. This is something that doesn't cross most people's minds, but it is a lot of fun. It feels extremely important to do it. So you feel that same thing that drew you into medicine in the first place of making a difference. Now you can go and represent an organization as a spokesperson. That is another way to take your speaking skills and to get paid. So or to do something that is impactful, sort of feeds your soul. And then I would say there's, of course, industry sponsored things. Not all industry sponsored things are going to align with what you want to do. Some of them, you control your own content. Others, you're paid to deliver. So you are effectively a spokesperson for the medical device or pharmaceutical company or whoever is the industry sponsor. However, that's still very fun if you like to give presentations, and it's something that is a way to still establish yourself as an authority, right? Consistent with your subject matter expertise. It's a way to make some additional money. And again, you may or may not have within your organization rules that govern your participation and things like that. And then the final way I'll say is through virtual education. So virtual education is a huge and growing industry. You know that a few years ago, people were getting on the scene with webinars. You also probably know that your inbox gets invitations to this webinar, that webinar. Oftentimes webinars are paid. So it's a really great opportunity if you have an area that you love to speak about that you can establish some virtual education around. That's a really great way to have an entrepreneurial and creative outlet to use your speaking skills and, again, to become more well-known and to increase your income. So as we're talking about ways to accelerate your career, it's either to move on up with that professional visibility, expertise, and reputation, or it's in order to sort of build something that's your own so that you have either more income or income on your own terms. So those are my 4 plugs for why speaking is number 1 career accelerator. Leave me any questions. You can email me, leave comments below, and I will love to address them, hopefully even before the kickoff of the Signature Speaker Series. That's it for now.